somewhere between Iran and Oman. A strip of water just 33 miles wide holds the global economy hostage. This is the Strait of Hormuz, and it controls your life. Every single day, roughly 21 million barrels of crude oil pass through this narrow channel. That is 1/5 of all the oil consumed by every human being on Earth. The Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, produce nearly 30% of the world's oil, and almost all of it must exit through a single door, the Strait of Hormuz. Supertankers carrying 2 million barrels each, ships larger than the Empire State Building laid on its side, thread this needle every day, in opposite lanes, without pause, in every weather. The navigable shipping lanes are just 2 miles wide each, northbound and southbound, separated by a safety buffer zone. There is no alternative. There is no detour. There is only through. More oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz in 1 week than passes through the Panama Canal in an entire year. No single geographic feature controls more economic value on Earth. The Iranian coast dominates the northern shore, mountains rising directly from the sea, an ancient land with every strategic advantage over any vessel attempting to pass through its waters. On the southern shore, the Omani Muzandam Peninsula juts like a dagger into the Gulf, a rugged, isolated territory connected to the rest of Oman only by crossing UAE territory. 3 islands in the strait's center, Abu Musa and the Tums, have been controlled by Iran since 1971. From them, Iran can monitor, threaten, or stop every vessel passing through. On any given day, 20 to 25 laden tankers transit outbound through Hormuz, alongside dozens of container ships, chemical tankers, and LNG carriers. It is the world's busiest strategic waterway. Beneath the surface of this routine commercial traffic runs an invisible war of radar, sonar, surveillance satellites, and signal intelligence, every major power watching every vessel constantly. For 3,000 years, traders have navigated these waters, dhows carrying frankincense and spices where supertankers now haul crude oil. The geography has never changed. Only the stakes have grown. Beneath the strait's seabed run fiber optic cables carrying internet traffic for hundreds of millions of people across the Middle East and South Asia. Disrupting Hormuz means disrupting everything. Qatar, the world's largest LNG exporter, ships all its natural gas through Hormuz. Europe's heating, Japan's power stations, South Korea's factories all depend on these transits continuing. An economist at the IMF calculated it bluntly. A 30-day full closure of the Strait of Hormuz would trigger a global recession deeper than 2008. That is the power of 33 miles of water. Iran knows exactly what it holds. The IRGC Navy trains constantly in the strait, swarming drills, mine-laying exercises, anti-ship missile tests. The threat is deliberate, visible, and credible. The United States maintains the Fifth Fleet in Bahrain specifically to keep Hormuz open, at an annual cost estimated at $50 billion when all regional military expenses are included. Close Hormuz for 30 days and Germany runs short of diesel. Close it for 90 days and South Korean factories begin shutting down. Close it for a year and the modern industrial economy breaks. Iran's own oil wealth flows through Hormuz, a fact that has historically made outright closure a self-defeating threat. But in times of war, that calculus has changed dramatically. This is the Strait of Hormuz, a geographic accident of the ancient world that became the load-bearing column of the modern one. And throughout history, it has never stopped being contested. For 150 years, Britain ruled the Persian Gulf. The Strait of Hormuz was a British maritime highway, connecting India to the empire through the Gulf of Oman and beyond. Every political boundary in the modern Gulf was drawn by British diplomats, the sheiks, the kingdoms, the trucial states. Britain created the political geography that still defines the region today. In 1971, Britain withdrew from east of Suez. It left behind a power vacuum in the most strategically important waterway on Earth. Iran and the United States moved immediately to fill it. The Shah of Iran stepped into Britain's role, declaring Iran the guardian of the Persian Gulf. With American backing and a modern U.S.-equipped military, he controlled the strait entirely. The Shah's very first act was to seize 3 islands in the strait itself, the Tuns and Abu Musa, one day before the UAE became independent. Iran has controlled them ever since. In 1979, the Islamic Revolution ended America's policeman. The new Islamic Republic viewed the U.S. as the Great Satan, and control of the strait became a weapon against Western interests. The Iran-Iraq War produced the tanker war of the 1980s, both sides attacking neutral oil tankers in the Gulf to deny each other oil revenues. Over 400 ships were struck. The world watched. In 1987, President Reagan ordered the U.S. Navy to escort Kuwaiti tankers through the Gulf, reflagging them as American vessels. It was the largest naval convoy operation since World War II. The USS Stark was struck by an Iraqi Exocet missile in 1987, killing 37 American sailors. Even when the shooting wasn't aimed at America, the strait extracted a lethal price from those defending it. An American frigate struck an Iranian mine in 1988, triggering Operation Praying Mantis, the largest U.S. naval surface combat since World War II. Iran lost half its navy in a single day. On July 3, 1988, the USS Vincennes shot down Iran Air Flight 655 over the strait, killing all 290 civilians aboard. It was one of the most devastating single events in the strait's modern history. In 1990, Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait brought the largest American naval force since World War II into the Gulf, demonstrating what the U.S. would sacrifice to keep the strait's oil flowing. After 1991, the U.S. never left. Permanent bases in Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, UAE, the Fifth Fleet dedicated entirely to the Gulf. The strait became America's most expensive geographic commitment on Earth. While the U.S. built a conventional naval presence, Iran built an asymmetric one. Swarms of fast boats, shore-launched missiles, mines, and submarines specifically designed to threaten but not fight the U.S. Navy directly. Iran deployed hundreds of shore-based anti-ship missiles along its Hormuz coastline, creating a threat zone that gave Iran the ability to strike any vessel in the strait without a single naval vessel. When the nuclear crisis began in 2004, Iran began explicitly referencing the strait as a pressure tool, making clear that any military action on its nuclear program would come at a maritime price. In 2008, oil hit $147 a barrel, partly driven by strait risk premiums. Financial markets proved they would price in Hormuz threats immediately and dramatically, even before any actual closure. In 2011 and 2012, Iran threatened to close the strait explicitly and repeatedly in response to Western sanctions. The threats drove oil prices up by 5% overnight with every announcement. In January 2012, Iran warned the USS John C. Stennis carrier not to return to the Gulf. The U.S. Navy sailed it back through anyway, an act of deliberate defiance that has defined the strait standoff ever since. In 200 years, the Strait of Hormuz has gone from British Lake to American Lake to contested waterway. Each transition was violent. Each was driven by oil. Each reshaped the global order. Iran's military doctrine for the strait is called anti-access/area denial, A2AD. It is not designed to win a naval battle with America. It is designed to make that battle catastrophically costly. Iran's Gator anti-ship cruise missile has a range of 200 kilometers, flies 5 meters above the water to evade radar, and carries a 165-kilogram warhead. It can be fired from caves in the cliffs above the strait. Iran has embedded hundreds of missile batteries inside mountain tunnels along the Hormuz coast, invisible from satellite, impossible to target precisely, and able to fire within seconds of receiving an order. The Fateh 110 ballistic missile can precisely strike a ship at anchor, a port facility, or a naval base anywhere in the Gulf, giving Iran the ability to attack Gulf Arab oil infrastructure as Hormuz leverage. Iran's fast boat swarms are designed to overwhelm modern warship defenses through sheer numbers and speed, attacking from all directions simultaneously at 50 knots, too fast for many weapons to track. Iran operates a fleet of Kilo-class submarines and over 20 homemade Ghadar midget submarines, small, quiet, and capable of laying mines or firing torpedoes in the shallow, confined waters of the Gulf. Mines are Iran's most feared strait weapon. In 1988, a single Iranian mine nearly sank a U.S. frigate. Iran has thousands of naval mines and could scatter them across the strait's shipping lanes in hours. Iran's Shahid 136 suicide drones, costing just $20,000 each, can be launched in swarms from coastal positions, overwhelming ship defenses through sheer numbers at a fraction of the cost of interceptor missiles. Every week in the Strait, IRGC speedboats conduct close approaches to U.S. Navy warships, sometimes within 50 meters, testing rules of engagement, nerves, and the threshold between provocation and war. Since 2019, Iran has seized or harassed more than 20 commercial vessels in the Strait, using helicopter-borne special forces to board ships and tow them to Iranian ports as political leverage. In July 2019, Iran seized the British-flagged Stena Impero in the Strait, detaining its 23 crew members and holding the tanker for over 2 months as leverage in a broader political dispute with London. Iran flies surveillance drones continuously over the Strait and Gulf, tracking every U.S. carrier movement, every tanker routing change, every naval deployment. Intelligence is the first weapon in every confrontation. Iran's radar network covers every meter of the Strait. Nothing moves through the channel without being detected, tracked, and recorded by IRGC sensors on both the Iranian mainland and its 3 islands. In 2020, Iran's Great Prophet 14 exercise simulated attacking a full-scale replica U.S. aircraft carrier in the Strait, with ballistic missiles, drones, and fast-boat swarms all striking simultaneously. Iran has developed anti-ship ballistic missiles, a capability once held only by China, giving it the ability to strike moving carriers and supertankers at ranges of up to 700 kilometers. Iran has built domestic oil storage, refining capacity, and overland pipeline infrastructure specifically to sustain its economy during a strait closure, preparing for the war it has long anticipated. Warning shots across tanker bows have become routine in the Strait, a normalization of intimidation that has shifted what counts as a provocation versus standard operating procedure in these waters. In 2021, Iran seized the South Korean tanker Hankook Chemi, holding it and its crew for nearly 4 months, while demanding Seoul release $7 billion in frozen Iranian assets held in Korean banks. Iran has now developed unmanned underwater vehicles, autonomous submarines, that can conduct surveillance, mine laying, or attack missions in Hormuz waters without risking a single Iranian sailor. Iran has built the world's most sophisticated waterway denial system, a layered arsenal of missiles, mines, submarines, drones, and fast boats that makes any Hormuz war uniquely and genuinely dangerous. For this kind of interesting stories, subscribe our channel SgNova Facts.